Why are you still sitting there, staring at a piece of live bait under a bobber, while the guy 50 yards down the bank is ripping a crankbait and pulling in absolute monsters? It is a serious question. Most of us grew up believing that nothing beats the real thing. We were taught that if you put a live minnow or a worm in front of a fish, they simply cannot resist it. But what if I told you that this old-school mindset is actually costing you the biggest catches of your life? The truth is, the most aggressive, trophy-sized fish in any body of water are rarely looking for a leisurely meal. They are looking for a fight. They are hardwired to react, to defend their territory, and to crush anything that moves erratically in their zone. Today, we are going to break down exactly why you need to stop waiting for fish to get hungry and start forcing them to bite. I promise you, once you understand the mechanics of the reaction strike, you will look at your tackle box in a completely different way. You are going to learn a truth that most old-school anglers refuse to accept. Tell me down in the comments before we start, are you a die-hard live bait fisherman, or do you prefer throwing artificial lures? Let us get into it. Let us take a step back and look at why we fish the way we do. For generations, fishing was taught as a waiting game. Your father or grandfather probably handed you a rod, hooked a night crawler, threw it out there, and told you to sit quietly and wait. It is deeply ingrained in fishing culture. We are conditioned to believe that fish are simple creatures that swim around looking for food, and if you offer them the most natural-looking food possible, they will eventually eat it. And yes, live bait works when fish are actively feeding, but that is the problem. Fish are only actively feeding for a very small percentage of the day. The rest of the time, they are suspended, they are hiding in cover, or they are just completely shut down. People will sit in the exact same spot for 4 or 5 hours, doing the exact same thing, wondering why the fish are not biting. They blame the weather, they blame the moon phase, or they say the lake is fished out. But they never stop to think that maybe, just maybe, the fish do not want to be fed. The reason this topic is so important is because relying on hunger is a losing strategy. By shifting your focus from feeding fish to triggering their aggressive instincts, you open up a whole new world of catching fish even when conditions are terrible. Let us talk about the early morning on the water. You know the exact feeling I am talking about. The mist is still rising off the surface of the lake, the air is crisp, and everything is completely quiet. You get to your favorite spot, bait your hook with a lively minnow, cast it out, and then you just sit there. You watch that bobber or watch your rod tip, waiting for a fish to decide it is hungry enough to eat. It is a peaceful way to spend a morning, sure. But let us be brutally honest for a second. While you are sitting there waiting for nature to take its course, you are completely relying on the mood of the fish. If they are not actively looking for a meal, your live bait is just swimming around doing absolutely nothing for you. You are playing a waiting game that you do not control. You are hoping a fish swims by, sees your bait, feels hungry, and decides to take a bite. But what if I told you that the biggest, meanest, most aggressive fish in that lake do not care if they are hungry or not? They are hardwired to attack, to defend their territory, and to kill things that act erratically in front of their face. By relying solely on live bait, you are completely ignoring the predatory instinct that causes the most explosive strikes. You are basically leaving the outcome of your fishing trip entirely up to chance. To really understand this, we need to define the difference between a feeding strike and a reaction strike. A feeding strike is exactly what it sounds like. A fish is hungry, it sees food, and it eats it to survive. This is what live bait targets. But a reaction strike is entirely different. It is an involuntary, instinctual response to a sudden stimulus. Think about it like a human reflex. If someone suddenly throws a baseball at your face, you do not stop to think about what kind of ball it is, how fast it is moving, or whether you want to catch it. You just put your hands up instantly to protect yourself. It happens in a fraction of a second. Predatory fish have the exact same wiring. But instead of putting their hands up, they open their mouths and crush whatever is invading their space. When a fast-moving, erratic lure suddenly deflects off a rock right in front of a bass or a pike, that fish does not have time to inspect it. Its brain sends an immediate signal to attack. The fish strikes out of pure surprise, anger, or defensive instinct. This means you can catch fish that have absolutely zero interest in eating food. This is the ultimate secret that artificial lure anglers use to dominate the water. There is a massive myth in the fishing world that we need to bust right now. The myth is that fish only bite when they are hungry. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard a guy at the boat ramp complain that the fish just are not hungry today. That is a fundamental misunderstanding of predatory biology. A predatory fish is an eating machine, yes, but it is also a highly territorial and aggressive creature. Imagine you have just eaten a massive Thanksgiving dinner. You are completely stuffed, sitting on the couch, and you could not possibly eat another bite of food. But suddenly, a giant wasp flies into the room and starts buzzing right in front of your face. What do? You grab a magazine and you smash it. You did not kill the wasp because you wanted to eat it. You killed it because it was annoying you and invading your space. Fish act the exact same way. When they are full and suspended under a dock, they will ignore a live minnow all day long. But if you burn a spinnerbait right past their nose, the vibration and flash trigger an aggressive response. They lash out to kill the annoyance. Live bait cannot trigger this response because a live minnow acts naturally. It avoids danger. You need something unnatural to make the fish mad. Let us use another real-life comparison to make this perfectly clear. Think about a house cat and a laser pointer. If you place a dead mouse on the floor, the cat might sniff it, play with it a little bit, and walk away if it is not hungry. But if you turn on a laser pointer and dart that little red dot rapidly across the floor, up the wall and under the sofa, the cat goes absolutely crazy. Its pupils dilate, it gets low to the ground, and it pounces with incredible speed. The cat knows the red dot is not food. It has no smell, no taste, and no nutritional value. But the erratic, fast movement triggers a deep, unstoppable predatory instinct to chase and capture. This is exactly what you're doing when you use a reaction bait. A jerkbait pausing and darting, or a crankbait digging into the mud, is the underwater equivalent of that laser pointer. When you soak live bait, you're just putting the dead mouse on the floor and hoping the fish is in the mood. But when you actively work an artificial lure, you're tapping into a primal instinct that forces the fish to commit, regardless of how full its stomach might be at that exact moment. One of the biggest disadvantages of live bait is that it actually gives the fish way too much time to think. Picture a clear water situation. You have a live shiner swimming around under a float. A big, wary fish swims up to it. Because the bait is just sitting there or swimming slowly in circles, the predator has all the time in the world to inspect it. It can look at the hook. It can see the thick fluorocarbon leader. It can sense that something is just slightly wrong with the presentation. Trophy fish do not get huge by being stupid. If they have even a second to analyze the situation, they will often turn around and swim away. We call these followers, and they are incredibly frustrating. But a reaction bait eliminates the thinking process entirely. When you are burning a lure past a piece of cover, the fish only has a split second to make a decision. It is a binary choice. Either eat it right now or let it get away forever. By forcing the fish to make a snap decision, you completely eliminate their ability to inspect your line, your hook, or the unrealistic paint job on your lure. Speed is your ultimate weapon against smart, pressured fish. To really master the reaction strike, you have to understand how fish experience the world around them. Fish possess an organ called the lateral line. It runs down the side of their body and allows them to detect tiny changes in water pressure and vibration. It is basically a superpower that lets them hunt in completely muddy water or in the dead of night. When a natural bait fish swims, it gives off a very subtle, smooth vibration. Predators recognize this, but it does not necessarily alarm them. Now compare that to a big, loud, artificial lure. A square-bill crankbait wobbling aggressively or a chatterbait violently shaking water side to side creates a massive chaotic disturbance. It sends shockwaves directly into the lateral line of every fish in the area. This intense acoustic signature screams for attention. It feels like an injured, struggling creature that is putting off distress signals. Live bait simply cannot replicate this level of chaos. A healthy minnow on a hook tries to stay calm and hide. An artificial bait kicks the door down and announces its presence to the entire neighborhood. When you want to trigger a reaction, you need to create maximum disturbance. Let us talk about a specific scenario out on the lake. Imagine a massive, tangled laydown tree halfway in the water. It has thick branches, heavy shadows, and you know for a fact that a giant fish is sitting right in the middle of it. If you throw a live bait near that tree, what does it do? It immediately tries to swim away from the predator. It hides in the weakest branches, trying to stay out of sight. The predator does not even have to move. Now, picture taking a heavy jig or a spinnerbait and casting it right into the thickest part of that tree. You reel it in, and the lure crashes into a branch, rolls over the wood, and suddenly drops right into the face of the fish. That sudden, violent intrusion into the living room of the predator triggers an instant, vicious strike. The fish did not strike because it was hunting. It struck because you dropped a bomb on its roof. You cannot achieve that specific deflection and sudden appearance with a piece of live bait. Lures allow you to put the bait exactly where the fish is hiding, in a way that forces them to defend their territory aggressively. Efficiency on the water is another massive factor that live bait anglers completely ignore. Think about the mechanics of fishing with real bait. You have to carefully hook it, gently cast it out so it does not fly off the hook, and then you sit and wait. If nothing happens, after 15 minutes, you slowly reel it in, check the bait, and cast again. In an hour, you might cover a tiny 20-foot radius of water. Now look at the angler using a reaction bait. In that same hour, they have made 100 casts. They have covered a huge stretch of the shoreline, bumped off 20 different rocks, ran their lure through 3 different weed beds, and presented their bait to dozens of different fish. Fishing is, in many ways, a numbers game. The more fish you put your lure in front of, the higher your chances of finding one that is willing to attack. Reaction baits allow you to move fast, locate active fish, and cover water with incredible speed. While the live bait guy is hoping a fish eventually swims past his single spot, the artificial lure angler is hunting them down. Speed and coverage will almost always beat sitting still and waiting. We need to dive deeper into the territorial aggression of big fish. The older and larger a fish gets, the more it claims a specific piece of structure as its own. A giant bass will claim a specific stump. A huge pike will hold a specific weed line. They are the apex predators in their little zone, and they do not like intruders. If a small natural bait fish swims by, the predator might eat it if it is hungry, or it might just watch it pass. But what happens if another predator, or something brightly colored and obnoxious, comes crashing through their zone? It is an act of disrespect. The big fish strikes to kill, to eliminate the competition, and to send a message. This is why incredibly unnatural lures work so well. A bright pink or chartreuse lure looks absolutely nothing like anything found in nature, but that loud, obnoxious color paired with a violent action makes it the perfect intruder. It annoys the predator into making a mistake. You're basically picking a fight with the toughest guy in the bar. You cannot do that with a natural, subdued piece of live bait. One of the most frustrating things an angler can face is a post-frontal weather system. We have all been there. A huge cold front blows through overnight. The temperature drops, the wind shifts, and the sky becomes a high, bright, cloudless blue. The barometric pressure spikes. When this happens, fish develop a condition called lockjaw. They sink to the bottom, they pull tight to cover, and their metabolism slows down. They refuse to eat. If you go out on a day like this with live bait, you are going to have a miserable time. You could drop a perfect minnow right on their head, and they will just stare at it. This is the exact moment when you absolutely must switch to a reaction bite strategy. Because they are not feeding, you have to rely purely on instinct. By dropping a heavy spoon quickly past their face, or snapping a jerkbait violently and letting it pause dead in the water, you can shock them into opening their mouth. It is the only way to salvage a tough day of fishing. Reaction strikes do not care about barometric pressure. Reflexes work even when the fish has a headache from the weather. Let us talk about the visual aspect of the strike. Flash is a massive trigger for predatory fish. When a real bait fish is swimming normally, it blends into its surroundings. But when a bait fish is injured, dying, or fleeing for its life, it rolls on its side. When it rolls, the scales catch the sunlight and create a bright, erratic flash. Predators are trained to look for this flash from a long distance away because it signals an easy meal that is struggling. Artificial lures, especially spoons, spinnerbaits, and jerkbaits, are designed to maximize this exact flash. Every time you twitch your rod tip, the lure rolls and sends a beam of light through the water. A predator sees that flash from 30 feet away and instantly turns its attention to it. It triggers the chase response. A live bait fish on a hook is generally going to stay upright and try to swim normally. It does not flash. It does not look panicked in the same way. By using artificials, you are simulating the exact visual triggers of a dying animal, which is far more enticing to an aggressive predator than a healthy animal just sitting there. Many old-school fishermen are obsessed with the idea of a natural presentation. They want their bait to look exactly like the local forage. But here is a hard truth, sometimes. The unnatural presentation is exactly what you need to trigger a massive strike. Have you ever wondered why lures painted in fire tiger, which is bright green, yellow, and orange with black stripes, catch so many fish? There are absolutely zero bait fish in freshwater that look like a neon tiger. It makes no logical sense if you only believe in the natural presentation theory. But it makes perfect sense when you understand reaction strikes. In stained or muddy water, a natural colored live bait completely disappears. The fish cannot see it until they are right on top of it. But a fire tiger crankbait stands out like a neon sign in a dark alley. The aggressive colors, combined with a loud rattle inside the lure, give the fish a clear target to attack in low visibility conditions. You are purposely giving them something unnatural because it is easier for them to locate and destroy. Stop worrying about making it look real and start worrying about making it visible. Let us explore the dreaded midday slump. You get out on the water at dawn and the topwater bite is incredible. Fish are busting everywhere, but by 11 o'clock in the morning, the sun is high in the sky, the wind dies down, and the lake looks like a sheet of glass. The feeding frenzy completely stops. The live bait anglers pack up their gear, eat a sandwich, and complain that the bite is over until the evening. But the angler throwing reaction baits knows that the game has just changed. The fish did not leave the lake. They just stopped actively hunting. They have moved into the shade under docks, under lily pads, or deep into the weeds. This is when you tie on a flipping jig or a punch bait. You go right into their heavy cover, and you drop that heavy lure straight down through the roof of their shelter. The fast fall rate of a heavy tungsten weight creates a pure reaction strike as the lure plummets past their face. They do not have time to think about the sun or the fact that they are full. The sudden downward movement forces them to snap. You can catch your biggest fish of the day while everyone else is taking a nap. The erratic movement of an artificial lure is something that live bait can never truly replicate. Think about how a live worm acts in the water. It wiggles a little bit and then it just hangs there. A live minnow will swim in a small circle trying to find a place to hide. It is predictable. Predators get bored by predictable. But think about how a walk-the-dog topwater lure acts. It zigs left, it zags right, it spits water, and it pauses. It is completely unpredictable. A predator tracking that lure from below cannot calculate exactly where it is going to be in the next second. This unpredictability creates a sense of urgency. The fish realizes that if it does not attack right now with maximum force, this erratic creature is going to escape. This is why topwater reaction strikes are so incredibly violent. The fish comes out of the water completely, smashing the lure with pure hatred. They overcompensate for the erratic movement by attacking with excessive force. You will never see a fish explode on a stationary bobber the way they absolutely annihilate a fast-moving topwater bait. Let us talk about deflecting off structure, because this is perhaps the single most important technique for triggering a reaction strike. Imagine you are cranking a lure over a rocky point. If you just reel the bait smoothly through the open water above the rocks, you might get a follower. But if you reel that bait down so that the bill of the crankbait physically crashes into the rocks, everything changes. The bait hits a rock, stops dead for a fraction of a second, kicks out to the side wildly, and then recovers its swimming motion. That exact moment, the split second after the lure deflects and kicks out, is when the strike happens. It simulates a baitfish making a sudden, panicked mistake. A predator trailing the lure sees that mistake and strikes instantly. It is an ambush trigger. You cannot deflect live bait. If a live minnow swims into a rock, it just stops and hovers there. It does not careen off wildly. By mastering the art of bouncing artificial lures off wood, rocks, and weed stalks, you are actively creating the mistakes that predators are hardwired to exploit. The actual physical sensation of the strike is completely different, and it dictates how you fish. When you are using live bait, a bite is usually a subtle process. The bobber dips slowly, or you feel a gentle tap, tap, tap on the line. You have to wait, give the fish time to swallow the bait, open your bail, and hope you set the hook at the right time. It is a stressful guessing game. Set the hook too early, and you pull the bait right out of their mouth. Set it too late, and the fish swallows the hook entirely, which is terrible for catch and release. But a reaction strike is absolute violence. There is no guessing. You will be reeling your spinnerbait back to the boat, and suddenly it feels like someone took a baseball bat and smashed your fishing rod. The fish hits the lure moving at top speed, and they hook themselves instantly. The rod loads up, the drag screams, and the fight is immediately on. There is no waiting. There is no tap, tap, tap. It is an adrenaline rush that live bait simply cannot provide. You are feeling the raw, unbridled aggression of an apex predator. We also need to discuss the pure logistics and hassle of the live bait trap. Using real bait is a massive chore. You have to go to the bait shop early in the morning, spend your hard-earned money, and then baby those minnows all day long. You need an aerator. You need to keep the water cool. If it gets too hot, half your bait dies before you even put it on a hook. You spend half your time managing the bait instead of actually fishing. Contrast that with a tackle box full of artificial lures. Your crankbaits do not need oxygen. Your soft plastics do not care if the sun is shining. They are always ready to go. You can keep them in your truck for 6 months, tie one on, and immediately catch a giant fish. When you switch to focusing on reaction strikes, you become a much more efficient angler. You spend 100% of your time casting, retrieving, and analyzing the water, instead of dipping a net into a bucket of slimy water. It frees up your mind to actually focus on the mechanics of fishing and finding the fish. Let us look at a specific time of year where reaction baits absolutely dominate, the autumn transition. In the fall, water temperatures drop, and bait fish begin grouping up into massive schools to migrate into the backs of creeks. The predatory fish follow them, and they gorge themselves to prepare for winter. You might think this is the perfect time for live bait, but you would be wrong. When there are thousands of real bait fish in the water, putting one more live minnow on a hook is like hiding a needle in a haystack. Your bait gets completely lost in the crowd. The predator has no reason to single out your specific minnow. To catch fish in the fall, you need to stand out. You need a lipless crankbait or a vibrating jig ripped violently through the school of bait fish. The loud vibration, the heavy flash, and the erratic ripping motion make your lure look like the one wounded, dying bait fish in a school of thousands. The predator ignores the healthy bait fish and crushes your lure because it looks like an easy, struggling target. You have to use artificial aggression to cut through the noise of nature. Switching from live bait to reaction baits requires a complete mental shift. It changes who you are on the water. When you use live bait, you are a trapper. You set a trap, you sit back, and you wait for an animal to wander into it. It is passive. But when you tie on an artificial lure and look for reaction strikes, you become a hunter. You are actively searching for prey. You are making calculated decisions about cast angles, retrieval speeds, and lure colors. If a spot does not produce a fish in 10 minutes, you pick up the trolling motor and you move. You are forcing the issue. This mindset makes you a dramatically better fisherman because you are constantly learning. You learn how fish relate to structure, how they position themselves in current, and how different weather conditions affect their aggression levels. The live bait guy sitting in a lawn chair learns very little about the lake. The hunter throwing a jerkbait learns every contour, every rock pile, and every hidden weed bed. You stop relying on luck and start relying on skill. Ultimately, the choice between live bait and reaction baits comes down to control. Do you want the fish to dictate how your day goes, or do you want to dictate the action? Live bait leaves the power in the hands of the fish. If they do not want to eat, you lose. But mastering the reaction strike gives you the ultimate control. You possess the ability to make a fish open its mouth even when its brain is telling it not to. You are using physics, biology, and raw instinct against them. It is incredibly rewarding to know that you fooled a wild animal with a piece of plastic and metal. You made it so angry, so surprised, or so territorial that it violently attacked something that is not even real food. That is the true essence of sport fishing. It is not about feeding the fish, it is about outsmarting them. Once you experience the rod-jarring power of a true reaction strike from a trophy fish, you will never want to sit and stare at a bobber ever again. You will understand that aggression is the ultimate key to success. Let us wrap this all up. We have completely dismantled the old-school idea that you have to feed a fish to catch a fish. The biggest plot twist here is that the older and smarter a fish gets, the less likely it is to fall for your slow-moving live bait, and the more likely it is to violently attack a fast, noisy, erratic lure purely out of defensive instinct and anger. By shifting your mindset from being a passive trapper waiting for a hungry fish to becoming an active hunter forcing a reaction strike, you take total control of your time on the water. You will cover more water, you will trigger strikes in terrible weather conditions, and you will experience the most aggressive road-snapping hits of your life. It is time to leave the bait bucket at home and start fishing with purpose. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with us today. If this video changed the way you think about fishing, please hit that subscribe button and give the video a like. Now, I want to hear from you down in the comments. What is the most violent strike you have ever had on a fast-moving lure? And what bait were you using? Let us get a discussion going, and I will see you out on the water.